Good. All right, Eric. Yeah, John, just so everybody knows, John said he might not be able to make, he would be late or might not make it. So he asked Eric to stand in. And so there he is, hosting the meeting. And I did just get a text message from Dave, who also said he was unlikely to be able to come to the meeting as he is testifying before the Board of Selectmen tonight. I have no idea about what, so. So that leaves, we're waiting for Ralph. We do have a quorum, so we could get started. There isn't really all that much to cover. I mean, it's really not all that important. It's more or less getting our house in order as we prepare for budget season, so. So in advance of calling, I'll call the meeting to order. I did get a text message also from Al. Perhaps we could do a moment of silence he's requesting for Edna S. English. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Edna, but she was the former selectman of Hingham for 6 years, 16 on the school committee, held the chairmanship. Our town's biggest competitor in sports, also served on many boards in Hingham, including the finance committee. So again, we ask that you just take a moment and remember.
You're frozen.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay, thank you. All right, so our, just go over our meeting agenda. Do we have Ralph in? I'm not really sure if I have everyone on my screen. So right now, does anybody else see anyone other than myself, Rosemary, Kathleen, Chuck, and Al?
Nope, that's all I see.
Okay, very good. All right, so just review the agenda. Everyone should have got this by email in advance. Meeting minutes. Oh, so Samantha. Oh, yeah, Samantha also texted that there was some school thing that she wouldn't be able to come to. So perhaps Chuck, you could take notes. There also, oh, she did say that she was able to do the meeting minutes from the recording. So you know what, Chuck, you don't have to take notes.
Yeah.
I'm prepared just in case.
That's good. All right.
That's why we elected you clerk.
That's right.
No one else wanted it.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so wonderful at it. That's not true.
Ah, you are a very capable clerk. All right, so meeting minutes from August 8th are the only meeting minutes we have outstanding. The reserve fund stands at 50,000 in this new budget cycle. The public forum is temporarily suspended due to the COVID-19 limitations. I invite anybody in the public that has questions, certainly can reach me by email or by my home phone, 781-447-4366. Under new business, we'll be covering the committee vacancy. We'll be looking at liaison assignments. John actually asked to include revenue forecasting discussion, so there'll be the opportunity for anybody to chime in on that subject. And we'll look at the budget manager meeting schedule. The accountant, Ken Lytle, will be coming into our meeting at 7:30. I asked him just to give us an update on the budgets that he has received to date. So under old business, we'll take some subcommittee reports if they're available. And then under old business, we'll talk about the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District assessment, perhaps delve into a little bit of the non-mandated busing that we're going to keep on the back burner for our agenda, and communications, and any other information or anything that anybody would like to bring up under new business. So with that, we'll move into the committee vacancy. So some discussion about potential candidates. Go ahead, Rosemary.
I think Kathy's been amazing with the numbers, and I think this is going to be a real tricky year, and she's just been great. The article she wrote was great. She's the liaison. I think that's going to be our, it tends to be the one that gets the most attention. And I was wondering if we could have her be the liaison to the school, because her background in education and finance and
Sure.
being reason.
All right, let me just run through. So I've been working on this document, and I was going to share it. John told me how to share documents. But basically, you can see all the highlighters from different people who have texted, emailed, or called me and asked about perhaps serving on one of these liaison assignments. So I'm going to go over them in order. And I will start with the Whitman Regional School District, since you brought it up, Rosemary. So I think in previous communications, I mentioned the fact that because I was a member of the Regional Agreement Amendment Committee, it might make sense for me to remain as the liaison to the district. Since then, yes, I have reconsidered based on Kathleen's educational background and her certainly on firing on all cylinders when we're talking about any issue that's regarding the district. I would highly recommend and defer that assignment to Kathleen. If you would like to accept, that would be great.
I would love to accept it. I'm already
Okay.
working on it. Thank you, Rick.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Thank you very much. So as I said in that same email, I said, I need to take a look at the liaison list. And if there's something under, where Scott formerly held liaison assignments, there's something there that you would wish to consider, or do you think you have the requisite experience to take on any other ones that are already listed under someone else? So under that heading, I have the following requests that have come to be requested for. For example, Ralph indicated, and I think he sent out a very lengthy work history that would certainly give him the experience necessary to be the liaison with the treasurer collector. So I would recommend that Ralph have that designation unless somebody has an exception with that assignment. Treasurer collector. So right now, Ralph has the Veterans Council on Aging, Conservation Commission, and Historical Commission. So, and then, so based on that same thing, John Galvin sent an email and requested that he be considered for the position of a liaison to the assessor's office. And I think he's a good fit for that, based on his certainly revenue forecasting experience that he has made the committee leaps and bounds in the past year on our understanding of revenue forecasting, or at least scratching the surface for the most of us. But so I would certainly concur with his suggestion that he be assigned for the assessor. And he also asked about the police. And then I heard subsequently from Al, who also has some significant experience and deals with other police departments in other communities. So I think one of the other considerations is how many other boards and committees do our members serve on? So when I had originally thought that the police could be under John, I'm thinking where he's on several other committees representing the Finance Committee, I would recommend that Al then assume the role of the liaison to the police and the inspectional services. So if that's something, Al, you consider doing.
Sure. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And
Oh,
then-
special service, sure, absolutely.
Special services, yeah. So there's a department who's, going to be moving into some new, technology with the online permitting and that type of thing. So, then Dave Cordero, right? His listings for the department liaisons are for capital improvement, town administrator, selectman. Again, this is someone else that's involved with an enormous amount of commitment to other committees, as evidenced by his unavailability tonight. Go ahead, Rosemary.
I just think that the liaison to the selectmen and it should be the head, should be our chair.
Right.
You'll be speaking, and the town, they absolutely should be the chair. I mean,
Okay.
he should have run for the
That's-
chair.
Yeah, that's one of the things that when alleviating myself from some of the liaison assignments, I do feel that the town administrator and selectmen, especially in this transition year, should be the chair. So I do concur with that recommendation as well. So,
Agreed.
okay, thank you. And then Chuck has been the liaison to the South Shore VOTEC. There's nothing broken with that relationship. I would like to see that remain if, Chuck, you're willing to continue. Also, Chuck is the liaison to the Board of Health and Recreation. So again, this year, we're going to be moving into some new representative from Recreation, so.
Yeah, and plus, in health too, Eric is no longer with us.
Right.
And
So
I
if
think-
you're willing to stay in those roles, I think this will be an important year for both of those departments to have a liaison. So
Yeah,
Their
absolutely.
experience, I think that'd be a good fit.
Sure.
Okay, so then moving on to Ralph. Ralph has been the Veterans Liaison, Council on Aging, Conservation Commission, and Historical Commission. So not a lot of information flows both ways with a lot of those liaison assignments. So I think the treasurer collector will give Ralph an opportunity to really showcase his skill set, and I think that'll be a benefit to the board. So I'm looking to get a recommendation to add to Ralph's list with the treasurer collector. So then to Kathleen. So with the Whitman Regional School District assignment, that's a big one. And also the town clerk. Do you think you would be interested in serving on both of those roles,
Sure.
Kathleen?
Yes,
Sure.
absolutely.
Okay. Does anybody?
I just had
Okay.
a question. Could I do fire instead of DPW? I know I've tried to communicate with DPW. I've sat down with them, and I think there's not a lot of communication there. I think maybe they view a builder or somebody with the field for that. But I know
Okay.
you've gotten more information. There's been more back and forth with you. So
Rick, I can work with the DPW commission if you want.
you want to do that one instead? I'll do fire and library.
Okay, so 1 minute. So back to Dave then. We pulled the town administrator and the selectmen. Obviously, we're going to leave him with the capital improvements as he's the chair of the Building Facilities and Capital Expenditure Committee. I did pencil him in there for the fire and emergency management because those two kind of go together in lieu of those other two. So if we didn't put him, but that was only, like I said, for discussion here. So
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any committees or anything else, so something like that would be fine. So,
So would you rather have fire and emergency management and then we'll move the library and or DPW back up to Dave?
sounds perfect.
Is
Well, I don't know if we
everybody-
would, I thought somebody was going to do the DPW. Al just said he wanted to do the DPW.
Okay, so
Because he's
Al,
not on a committee also. You've got to consider people on committees and liaisons. You don't want
Right.
to overburden anybody.
The
Right,
liaison.
so right now Al's penciled in for the police and inspectional services. So do you want to, Al, do you want to go with emergency management and say do police, fire and emergency?
No, no, it's too low. It's too much of a load. Too much
I'll do
conflict.
fire and emergency management.
Okay, all right.
I'll do fire and emergency management. And then Al, you said you would do DPW. Is that what you said?
I can
I
work
mean, no,
with,
library?
Well, here's the thing, Rosemary,
library.
if we pull fire and emergency management from Dave, we should probably put the DPW back up there because he'll have no other assignment other than capital improvement.
Oh, I thought, okay.
I'll give that to Dave
I
then.
thought-
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I said, this is kind of like a draft anyways.
Yeah.
You can see how many notes are made on this page. Like I said, I think it's important that we've put a face with these departments and, and get some information, as it becomes available for the rest of the committee. So, all right, so that leaves John with the technology assessor and technology assessor. So he's no longer doing police. So that's good because John, like I said, is on those other committees, I think we want to try to keep his liaison
Is he,
assignment.
Rick, excuse me, Rick, is he still on the building committee? John?
Yes.
Middle school.
Okay.
Yes,
That's good.
and he's still on the capital committee as well.
Right,
So,
right.
so that's quite a load.
Right.
All right, and then, so does anybody have any questions on that? And I can go over it one more time if anybody missed anybody's assignments. Does anybody need additional information? All right, so for Samantha, maybe this would help when Samantha does the minutes, and she could then update our finance committee member roster for 2021 and list the following people for liaisons. So I'll start with my Rick Anderson. I'm taking off Whitman Hanson, and I'll be the liaison to the selectman, the town administrator, and that's it. Selectman and town administrator. So then Dave will be the liaison to the DPW, right?
Yep.
Chuck will be South Shore VOTEC, Board of Health, Recreation. Ralph will be Treasurer Collector, Veterans, Council on Aging, Conservation Commission, Historical Commission. Kathleen will be Whitman Hanson Regional School District and the Town Clerk.
Yep.
Rosemary will do Fire, Emergency Management, and the Library. Are you still with that one?
Rosemary.
Yep. And then who's, okay, so not the DPW.
What's up, Al?
And-
Did you say something?
Yeah,
Fire,
did you-
Emergency Management, and Library, that's you, right? Okay, and then Al will do Police and Inspectional Services. Is that right, Al?
Correct.
And then John will do Technology and the Assessor. I think that covers all the liaison assignments. I did get an updated liaison list from the Board of Selectmen. So at the same time, we'll put together the joint list of liaisons. So again, when we communicate as a liaison, if we can CC any communications to the corresponding liaison for the Board of Selectmen, I still think that'll help communication within the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. So, all right, any other questions regarding that agenda item? I think we beat that to death. Okay, revenue forecasting discussion. Again, John asked if we could put a discussion on for this item. Does anybody wish to continue a discussion with that?
I had a question about,
Go ahead.
were we invited into the process of setting the levy, or were we sort of, I know John was interested in that. Did he get back
John
to you?
definitely sent an email. He was very concerned about the direction that the town had gone in the past and would have liked to have been more involved and seen the finance committee more involved in that process. He did get a reply from Frank, really saying that historically that the finance committee has never been participatory in this process. So again, throwing it out to the board, if you think we should get more involved, that process happens more or less before we really start rolling into the budget season. So I believe the process is completed at this point, right? Does anybody?
I don't think we had a try of it. It should, I think it's this month or the end of this month. It's not done until it's
Certified.
yeah,
Right.
certified. And well, there's a trial, I think. Is that what Dave's at? I don't know. But yeah, but all that, we oversee every financial aspect. It just is so inappropriate for anybody to say, oh, a finance committee isn't involved in the basis of the financing of the town. Like, are we setting the levy correctly to meet our our funding, you know.
Right,
I
again, John
confused-
voiced some
I-
legitimate concerns that we did not do a very good job at it last year. I mean, obviously, we had the challenges of COVID, and, you know, we're looking to do some forecasting on something that, you know, you're not knowing for many, many months.
Well, I think maybe you're correct about the forecasting aspect, but doing it last year, we didn't have COVID. We didn't have an issue of COVID last year. Last year, I believe a school committee member came back in and had to do some corrections for free cash and other things, and make sure that we collected money that we left on the table. So, I mean, if we had seen that or been part of the process and we said, hey, you're leaving 100,000 on the table that you're not collecting from, you know, new growth or whatever else, you know, which basically really just benefits. It benefits like large builders or large companies more than it benefits us. So it's basically not paying, you know, wealthier people not paying taxes. If we had seen that, I don't think anybody would have said that's okay. And we should have been part of the process. John's correct. And I'm uncomfortable that anybody would want to kind of edge anyone out, but I guess we'll have people talk about it. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. I'm open to that, but I think we need to be part of that process. He's correct.
Sure, and I think maybe, you know, in the budget manager process, we could ask the corresponding departments that are integral into the process, whether they feel that the finance committee should be more involved in that process at an earlier stage. So I know from John Galvin's perspective, he is definitely concerned about not being part of the process to the point where he's coming into view.
And there he is. Hi, John.
Hi, John. We're talking about you.
You're
Maybe we'll
muted.
hear his insight
No,
on
you're
this.
not muted for long. So
Oh boy, you're talking about me.
Yeah.
Oh no.
we're at the
No, I had
point in our
asked about the
agenda.
assessment, I mean, the levy process, and I've been concerned that we really haven't heard anything, been invited in the process. And it's such a big part of how it's how we collect the revenue to spend, you know, to be a finance committee.
So let me just let you know, John, that before you came on, I did let the board know that you, you know, emailed with your concerns about, you know, being part of the process, and you were completely rebuffed in your attempts to have any input in the process at all. So if you want to tell us about what you see as far as how the process is going, or if in fact you think we should be more aggressive in pursuing a seat at the table.
I think it was made. Hold on, Ralph's trying to get in. Hold on, and I gave it to you, Ralph. Hold on. You gotta look down in your email, buddy.
Oh, he's emailing you to get the login?
Yeah. There we go. Sorry about that. My concern really is that, sorry, you put me on the spot here.
No. Do you want us to table the
No,
discussion?
no,
and go
no,
back
no,
to-
no, 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 not at all, not at all. My concern basically was that we were pretty conservative in our revenue estimates last year. Kind of two-part, actually. One, we started with Mr. Madden kind of changing the way that our revenue estimates have done for our local receipts. And basically, you know, in the past, we've estimated 90% of the year's prior local receipts. And Mr. Madden recommended that we go to 85% in our estimates for local receipts. I think we ended up somewhere around 92%, 93% when we made some adjustments. But that included removing almost $400,000 or $500,000 of other revenue estimates that we were concerned about because of COVID. So I kind of, I think my email started after we got a report from Ken, maybe, I think it was, that said, he gave us kind of an email that was about, you know, the first 2 months of receipts looked pretty good to last year, basically. And I said, well, you know, we were pretty conservative in our estimates. Do we want to look at that? Because the final numbers don't go in until they do the tax recap and set the set the tax rate. And I thought we could possibly consider some adjustments there in how we estimated. And, that would end up giving us more money than we thought. But as Rick said, they pretty much told me that it's none of my business and it's not our opinion. And honestly, it's not. Our going forward, our 2022 revenue estimates are more of our business. But what they actually put forward for the final numbers for 21, I mean, whatever. I wasn't going to put out. I wish, especially now with Frank retiring, I think it's very important that we get involved and can get involved. And I wish, I'm looking around here, was hoping to see Ken at this meeting, and obviously he's not. So
Ken will be checking in at 7:30, so, yeah.
okay, all right, good. All right, good. Well, that's good to hear.
So I
think
want to
that's a
try to
good
keep
idea.
questions to him pretty much at a minimum. I'd like to keep him on the agenda for each meeting, but I'd like to try to not commit him to the entire meeting. So I told him to come in at 7:30. He is part of that process, right?
Oh,
So there are
absolutely.
several town departments that are involved in that process, so.
Isn't there
Go ahead,
a,
Rosie.
isn't there a trial, there's a trial or something, you're supposed to set the tax rate legally that's voted in. Has that occurred? Other than that, we could be
There's-
part of that.
There's a what? I'm sorry, what did you say?
To set a tax rate, I'm gonna go through, you have to, there's a whole process, but to certify it, you have to have, I think it's called a trial. They just sort of go up in front and explain it and do what, but I haven't seen that ever happen here. Of course,
So I
I'm
think it is-
reading out of the FinCom handbook when I'm saying this, but until then, it's not set. The levy's not set. I mean, we have numbers, but it's not set yet.
Well, I mean, we pretty much know. The only thing we don't know in the levy is what the new growth is going to be. The other stuff is fixed. I mean, we can only go up 2.5, and
Yeah,
that's all we can do. But the new
we should
growth,
be going. with it.
the new growth will play a part of it. And honestly, I was shocked last year when the new growth came in less than what we thought. I'd be shocked this year if it doesn't come in way more than what we thought.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
But until all that work is done and it's filed, I mean, there are a lot of pieces to setting it up, and the revenue estimate sheet that I created last year is basically the tax recap sheet that Ken files, and I just took it back 5 years, and I really can't do any revenue estimates until all that is done for next year. And Ken has worked with me very closely, gave me a lot of information and whenever I asked for it. So I'm assuming that's only going to get better as we go forward, because
Yes.
he won't have any, he will have more, I guess, free reign is a word I want to use to to respond. I mean,
I don't know. I mean, it's concerning to say that because accountants are supposed to be working directly with finance committee, that he would have free range. He should have always had free range.
He does, but he also has bosses, and I mean, I don't want to go.
Every boss should be facilitating the finance committee. We have people that these statements concern me. That's all I'm saying.
Done. Yeah.
And might explain some of the situations that we've had. But that being said, that even that we monitor that the recommendations of course, COVID has caused issue and our collection, but that we monitor those recommendations and we're in the room while this is happening. And I think it's smart, and not just one person. And John, I appreciate what you do, but this is a committee issue. This is the largest amount of, this is the money we work with. We're not, so this has to not just be coming through just you, John. It has to be coming from the accountant to the committee. I hope you understand that. I think you've been great, and I want to say I appreciate you, but because we're one mind.
Well,
whereas it would be filtered through you to us, It would only, it would distort that like mine.
We did get it. I mean, basically, if you look at our Article 2, all the revenue estimates are what come from Ken. And through, you know, so, and the difference is the way we did them was a little different. So I think it worked out well that, you know, I was doing it one way, Frank and Ken were supplying it another way, and we were, you know, we were going back and forth a lot, and, you know, discussing things. So I think it was, you know, helpful. I think it'll, and here's Ken now chiming in, getting right in. His
All right.
his
So
ears
why don't we table the revenue forecasting item, and we'll take this opportunity to both welcome Ralph. Ralph, thanks for coming into the meeting. And
Welcome back,
Ken,
Ralph.
thank you as well for joining us. So basically on the agenda, we do have a budget manager meeting scheduling. So I just wanted to have this opportunity, Ken, for you to just give us maybe a quick update on where each department manager is with respect to the budget mailing. And you're muted.
You're muted, Ken.
You're muted.
How about now?
Yep,
There you go.
you're good.
So I sent out another reminder email to everybody, since the budgets that I've gotten so far are not many. That email did generate a lot of interest. So far, the assessor, the clerk, and myself, among the big departments, have submitted their budgets. The Finance Committee, Planning Board, and Board of Appeals are the smaller areas that have also submitted their budgets. I've heard from a couple of other departments who are working on them, but they're waiting for more info. Others have not fully complied with the rules that they were given in the email. And by rules, I mean 2%. Nothing really stood out so far from what I've gotten. Nothing's all that surprising. I did come back to a couple of department heads or chairs to ask why they submitted the budgets that they did, just so there was some feedback that you guys would have in hand before you met with them. But a lot of the big departments like police, fire, DPW, water, sewer, I haven't gotten anything from yet, understandably, because their budgets are huge.
Right, yep. So they do have until the 15th. We gave until the 15th. So the reality is we probably, last year we started meeting on the last Tuesday of October. This year probably will be the same, just based on, you know, your feedback on the budgets that you've received. We could possibly, you know, schedule 3 departments of the list that you just gave us for the end of October and know that we would have their budgets in hand. So if we put together the schedule that way with the clerk, the assessor, and the accountant, all 3 of those budgets have been submitted. We could technically put them on the first meeting last week in October. So
Get things going pretty quickly, yeah.
yeah, I would much rather not start the budget meeting schedule later than last year. You know, we always say we're going to try to get sooner than later. But this is a year that we're also initiating a pretty good capital plan too, as well. So again, these departments are going to be submitting a lot of documentation, and we probably want to try to get them in sooner than later. So we appreciate your input. We'd like to think that, you know, we could get you to participate in the meetings as much as you're able to. Like I said, one of the discussions that we were having as you were logging on was the revenue forecasting and the, you know, the process, I guess. Can you give us just maybe a little bit of an update on where that sits?
So I've put together my estimates for the local receipts for the recap sheet. There are, as far as the revenue goes, that's probably the biggest piece that I'm responsible for, that there's some control over. The cherry sheet, money is pretty much dictated by the state. Enterprise revenue is done by the budget with Article 2. And then the tax levy pretty much covers the rest. But so there is some wiggle room that we have with the local receipts. And I tried to use a combination of what John Madden had provided us with a guidance on estimating, And I go through, part of what I would be doing monthly is to go through those local receipts areas, review them, and then send a snapshot of it to Frank so that he can get an idea of where things are. And in doing that, I'm able to kind of focus on trends, and see why money is coming in, when it's coming in, why isn't it coming in, which unfortunately had been the case for a while. So I do have an estimate ready for local receipts on the recap sheet. I probably put that together maybe 2 weeks ago. I haven't gotten any feedback on it yet from Frank or Kathy or anybody else. It is more conservative than what we have done in the past, because you do end up kind of getting into a little bit of trouble if you get too close to the actuals. So I tried to give ourselves a little more leeway in case we needed some room to adjust that.
Okay, so John, I think that was the buzzword that got you concerned, was that conservative word, right? Wasn't that, you're muted.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to, when we passed Article 2 in July, it was based off a certain revenue estimate that we had, for local receipts. And I think it was about 92% of what last year's were. And when I think we received a report, I don't know if it was from Ken or from Frank, that had the first 2 months receipts for July and August. And they came in actually pretty good compared to last year. And so that was kind of my question is, was there some consideration for the tax recap sheet of maybe not being quite so conservative? I know unless we had a special town meeting, there wasn't a whole lot we could do with that money, but it was just, was curious more on what was going on. And I mean, I think, Ken, you saw the reply that I got that was basically, not my responsibility, and that's fine. I mean, I'm just trying to have some input here, and hopefully I've helped out in that process. I think this past year, I think we got a lot more information on that, and I think hopefully this board, learn some things, that we all learn some things on how that affects our budget. And that's so important to us going forward, that we have, I mean, honestly, that's the first thing we should be doing. Before we meet with all these departments, we really need to know what our revenue forecast is, because we can't say, oh, no, we can't do that because we don't have the money if we don't know how much money we have. So, I mean, that's kind of, to me, the first step is to focus on revenue forecasting for 2022 before we start reviewing budgets even.
So Ken, we're not going to keep you long. Maybe just if we get asked if you think that it would benefit you to get the perspective of the finance committee earlier in the year as you prepare the report.
I think so, yeah. And if there's anything that, like, if you wanted to see, if John wants to see the local receipts estimate that I put together, I can share that and see if there's any, and I can outline why I got to the numbers where I got them. I didn't go with a blanket percentage for everything, because there were different variables in the different lines that led to me using different percentages, but the overall target that I ended up with was pretty much right where I wanted to be. But yeah, if there's anything I can share, any kind of feedback I can get in case I missed something, or yeah.
All right, so great. Just so you know, right before we started this discussion, we did the list of liaisons and department liaisons. So I'll still be the liaison to your department. So if I have questions and the board has questions, I'll get them to you. If you get me the information, I'll disseminate it to the entire board. So, in the same for you. If you have questions that you would like to get to the finance committee, please reach out anytime. Because the reality is, we mentioned this before, this is the year that Frank's retiring. We're going to have, a transition. There's going to be certainly, Frank was involved in every aspect of the budget, and the new town administrator may or may not have that time to focus on the budget. So again, I think it's going to be incumbent on us and you to communicate a little bit more than we have in the past. That's all.
I agree.
Just quickly.
Very quickly.
I won't pull a John.
Oh, John.
Oh,
Oh, I thought I pulled a Rosie back then.
Oh. Basically, I think we had agreed that we were gonna, I don't know if we agreed, but I had asked that we follow that handbook pretty closely. And Ken, you would be a real intricate part of that process. So really keeping a dialogue with all of us open. We're handling money, you're the accountant. You know, we really all should have a really close relationship. There's nobody that understands the town's finances better than you at this point, I'm sure. So that's key, and your input's key to this. And we also have some really clear guidelines with the Madden report. Like you said, you had stepped fairly closely, and we had conversations that we do that we're all monitoring that, and you know, with you. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, now that this is
Okay.
my first kind of real major go at it with the budget, being able to at least look at it from the outside for a few years first, knowing when to intervene, when not to, because it was a different process at my prior job when I was budgeting. Here it's a little, I don't want to say less control, but which isn't a bad thing. But yeah, just kind of chiming in when I can.
yeah.
Step on toes and
Yeah, so I think the stepping on toes things, feel free. I think the more toes we step on, we could offer apologies later. I think we'll go with
Honeymoon's
that.
over, Ken.
So no, even your question that you had early on in the process when you did the budget mailing and you received information that wasn't within the guidelines, I think is well within your purview to follow up with the department and ask them why they're sending what they're sending. So
Absolutely.
I would say you continue to do that in the best interest of all of us, to tell you the truth. So
there will be some more emails going out tomorrow.
great. All right. Any other quick questions for Ken?
No, thank you, Ken.
All right, Ken, thank you again for chiming in, and we'll give you the schedule as we put it together.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the next slide, item, I know, you guys already did the liaison assignments?
Yeah, I was just going to give you a quick review if you want.
Okay.
You and
Yeah.
Ralph.
Okay.
So it was quite a lot of give and go, and I just wanted to preface the assignments by saying we have to take into consideration people's caseload too. You know what I mean? So for some people, they sit on a lot of committees representing the finance committee. So the idea is not to overload. So we'll start with Ralph. Ralph, you weren't here for the discussion either. So your information that you provided was really extensive, and we are unanimous in our decision to make you the liaison to the treasurer collector. So I think you'll do a great job. We appreciate your experience now that we know what it is even more than ever. So, but you also are going to maintain your liaison to the veterans, the Council on Aging, Conservation Commission, and Historical Commission. You know, not a lot of communications go back and forth with those. But again, if you're willing to take on the treasurer collector, I think, the conversations you had with the treasurer collector in the past have definitely generated some good information for this committee. And you're muted if you wanted to say something.
Well, one of the things, though, the time I did is everything that she works on there by virtue of the Bartholomew group, some of the things kind of went above her head. But I said, look, I deal with this every day. I speak their language. There's nothing that they could throw at me that I wouldn't understand, and I could probably fire some stuff at them that leave them totally baffled. So therefore, my job on that as the liaison would be to make sure that the town is getting its money's worth and they don't stray from the investment policy.
Good job, Ralph.
We're in good hands, Ralph. Thank you very much.
Not a problem.
Okay. And then John, just to recap, we had several liaison appointments for you that came and went during the discussion. But what we ended up with was your recommendation that you be the liaison to the assessor. The board definitely concurs with that assignment, and also for you to be the liaison to the technology department. So are those two liaison assignments you're willing to take on?
Sure.
Okay, great. All right, and like I said, as the year goes, we could certainly change up assignments. I know the Board of Selectmen regularly changes up liaison assignments too. So what we're going to do is we're going to incorporate that information in a new member listing that shows the liaisons, and also the one that we have together with the Board of Selectmen, so that if we communicate with a department as a liaison, we can CC the corresponding liaison to the Board of Selectmen. Okay. Did you have any other questions back on that agenda item, John?
No, just curious.
Okay, very good. All right, so on the agenda then, we are now moving into the discussion for subcommittee reports. Building Facilities Capital Expenditure Committee. I know Dave is meeting with the Board of Selectmen tonight. John, do you have any updates from?
The first middle school building committee will be on October 19th. We have not met yet. So the plan there is to organize and kind of select the ground rule, review the ground rules. I'm kind of reading this here. Review documentation submitted by the MSBA. We've got so far there were 4 things due to the MSBA that were filed on behalf of the building committee by the school. The next things are our maintenance and capital planning form for mid-November. I would think the board would be able to get caught up on that. I'm a little disappointed that they haven't met yet, but with all that's going on, it doesn't surprise me. I'm also not sure if everybody is aware that the principal at Whitman Middle School was reassigned. He is now head of
Wow.
the remote learning. So he was on the building committee. So I don't know if he's going to be continuing that role, or if he will be removed and replaced. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, but I'm looking on the email. He's not on the email that was sent out. So I'm assuming,
Nobody's been put in his place? Do you know?
yeah, I believe the assistant principal was put interim principal. I don't know who that is.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm looking at the list of the email that went out, and but anyway, so we'll see how that goes. It's a pretty large committee. I think it's going to be, there's a lot of stuff going on there though. So
Right. All right, so October 19th is a Monday.
Correct.
Are you confident that their meetings are going to be held on Mondays? If you have any input, I would suggest that you make that suggestion.
I would
That way
think
we
so.
don't interfere with Tuesdays.
I mean, you have, selectmen, you have the assistant town administrator. I'm just looking who else is on there that meets on Tuesdays a lot. So I would think that Monday would be a good day for it. Hopefully they keep it there.
Okay. All right, any other questions for John with respect to the middle school building committee? Okay, seeing none. Just a quick regional agreement amendment committee. There was some discussion at school committee to get that rolling again. I have seen nothing. I did not watch the last school committee meeting. I don't know, was anything mentioned in that?
No.
Yeah. So I think at some point it's going to be, getting going again. There was that joint meeting with the 2 boards of selectmen and the school committee, and everybody have an opportunity to take a look at that. It was kind of brief. I think not a lot of substance came out of it. That's the, kind of moving into the next agenda item, really talking about the Whitman Hanson Regional School District assessment. So, the idea was to get together and try to find out if we could get some common denominators or a little bit more of a timeline or a history of what went wrong. But like I said, for me, the meeting really lacked a lot of substance. I think, I really think it's going to be incumbent on an independent investigator to get the information that we need to put that to bed. Go ahead.
I was really, I was
Kathleen,
concerned that,
I got
There
it first, Rosemary. Mute yourself.
oh, sorry.
I just want to know if the forensic audit has been done, because the two towns paid some money to an auditing firm to investigate how did the school spend money. And I agree with you, Rick. It has to be an independent set of eyes looking at Whitman Hanson, not the foxes who've been minding the chicken coops all these years, saying, oh, we didn't do anything wrong. Those guys did it. So I
Right.
think the forensic audit is important, and an independent set of eyes looking
Absolutely.
into what went on. And we can just go forward and let somebody else take care of the past. And once they come up with the solution, then we can discuss it.
I think that's a
You,
great
Rosemary.
synopsis. Go ahead, Rosemary, and then John.
Well, I was concerned that a lot of the numbers didn't add up, like Suko was said to have done some magic math and a different formula, but that's not how the numbers came out. They came out exactly the way. So I don't understand a lot of what was said. It was all over the place. How do we ensure that the same people aren't minding the chicken coop now? You know, that would be my fear. And I don't know, I think the state has stepped in to some degree, and not just the independent audit that Kathy had talked about, but I believe the state is looking at some stuff, is my understanding. I think somebody mentioned that at the meeting as well. So, but it was like a lot of different information coming that was conflicting, and you know, not really, it was uncomfortable. So I do hope that we do have somebody step in and look at this, because I mean, right now we just gave, you know, almost $1 million because over and to another town. It's unheard of, you know. And then after we've spent millions and there's no answers, that's concerning.
Okay, Rosemary, John?
Yeah, just to answer Kathleen, from what I understand, the audit, the bid, they did get a bid, but then the company said, COVID, we're not doing anything. So nothing has been done on it. I don't even know if we ever voted
We did.
to how to fund it. There was supposed to be some line item transfers and things like that. So I think I know we talked about it and we were all in favor of it, but we never got any requests to pay for it. So if I recall, I heard them saying with the last selectmen's meeting, I heard Frank say that he had reached out to Hanson and they were moving forward with it again, but that's the last I heard of it. Maybe something will come out of it tonight.
They will.
And I
Okay.
can say,
Yeah.
I
I
remember.
think Al had a question first, Kathleen. then-
Sorry.
No, just to reiterate, you know, it's we're going nowhere with this, Rick. You know what I mean? It's let's make definitive answers and questions on it.
Well, yeah, and I'm actually encouraged because, you know, some members of the school committee are asking the right questions. You know, I think during that meeting, it became pretty evident, you know, that two of the members of the school committee were asking the right questions. So I
Right.
think from that perspective, you know, we can have some encouragement. But like I said, there should not be people that were part of the administration as part of the investigation.
Right. I thought we allocated money for that.
For the audit.
The audit.
Yes, John just gave kind of a brief description that we really hadn't finalized the process though.
But we approved something. There was a certain amount. There's dollar figure attached to it. I'm just curious what happened to it.
I think Kathleen was going to chime in on that.
As I recall, and I remember the meeting, initially the cost was about 60,000, and then it was,
Right.
so Frank had said he was going to have to come to the finance committee for a reserve fund transfer, and then he reported good news that the estimate for the audit was significantly lower. So I said, so that means you don't need a reserve fund transfer. So there was money available, not involving the finance committee appropriation or transferring from the reserve fund. So they had the money to do this without asking us for additional funds.
So it fell on deaf ears is what it did, right?
Well, COVID.
Yeah, well, that's the company basically said they weren't going to do it because of COVID. So
So we'll bring it up. We'll keep it, keep it
revisit
part
it.
of the discussion.
You know,
Saturday, Hanson voted in 14,000 in free cash to pay for it. So I can't imagine it's been done if they just gotten the money for it. So, you know, either way. But can I clarify? You said 2 members. Are you talking about the 2 members that stated that this issue came back has been from far before, that it was a culture of underfunding education? For the school committee, you said 2 members were more accurate,
well-
had information. Was
Yeah,
it that
well-
those 2 members?
Dawn and, the newest member.
Oh, David Forth. Yeah,
David Forth.
yes, they had some, they did have great information. That's true.
And I think that, that their part of that meeting made it bearable, I guess, for lack of another word. The meeting itself lacked substance, with the exception of the questions that were raised by those 2 individuals. That's all I wanted to say about that. So, anything else regarding that? October 19th is the middle school building committee meeting, and I will keep you advised as to the next meeting of the Regional Agreement Amendment Committee. So the next old business item, we touched on it a little bit, is the Whitman Regional School District Assessment. Some of this information, I like to keep this here on our agenda, because this is an ongoing discussion. So also the fact that Hanson has their special town meeting scheduled for Saturday, is that correct?
They
Or
just
And
scheduled-
last Saturday.
It was last Saturday, right. Does
I
anybody
was
want
there.
to, yeah,
was
follow
there.
up on the budget associated with that?
Well, I said Kathy has the numbers, I think.
Well, what happened was, I have a plethora of papers here. At the October 2nd town meeting, miraculously, Hanson found about $1.3 million to fund some capital items. Thanks to the Whitman taxpayers for the $570,000 that they paid towards the school assessment. So I think it brings into question the credibility of any Hanson official who says we can't afford something. They can afford stuff, they just choose not to. So when we go forward with our Whitman Hanson regional assessment this year, there's no more concessions or no more, it's set in stone. The statutory method is the way to go.
thank you.
What I do want to bring up is that I communicated with John Tuffy back in August because the Chapter 70 monies were preliminary, based in January, and in August, the so-called final assessments were established. And what happened was that the Hanson's minimum local contribution actually went up by $7,300, and Whitman's minimum local contribution went down by $97,000, which means there should be less money coming from Whitman towards the budget and more coming from Hanson to the tune of about $20,000 for fiscal 21. And I asked John Tuffy when this would be raised at the school committee to reassess, since we've never used a statutory method before. They never had to revisit it. And he said it would be taken up at a school committee meeting in the near future. Honestly, I'm back to teaching in school myself, and you don't know what it's like to teach in a public school.
Can only imagine.
It's tough. We're getting there, but I'm sure they had other items to follow in terms of getting the school open. But I haven't let go of this item, so I will follow up with John Tuffy again. So when are you guys going to revisit the assessment? Because that's a $104,000 shift. Up for
Well,
him, down
yeah.
for us.
I thank you for providing those numbers, and I have absolutely no intention of removing this item from our old business on our agenda either until we get satisfactory answers. And I think it's really disturbing to find out that the money was found when we asked directly to the regional school district when they came to our budget meeting about their confidence in Hanson's inability to pay prior to town meeting. So
I think some of these things on the warrant were the most concerning to me. There were items that we said we couldn't pay for, we couldn't afford, like the telephones that they've now funded for only the Hansons. We have also items like the school capital stabilization fund. They funded that with money essentially that they borrowed from us. That, you know, 20, you know, their OPEG.
Well, just remember, it's not, they didn't borrow any money. They're not giving.
Yeah, we handed it over. It's true. But I mean, if they're able to stabilize, and then we've got the stabilization fund in free cash is $50,000. You know, these are things that we needed to do. Moody said that we needed to handle these things in our own. Just, you know, they've got a better rating. I just don't understand how we're servicing our community by allowing for this. You know, who double checked what Hanson could afford, and why did we have so many people petitioning? Well, the finance committee was saying they can afford it. Why did we have so many of our own selectmen and other people saying they can't afford it, they can't afford it? Now, essentially, this does the same thing, and this is the part that concerns me when I look at everything going over to, a lot of this money ended up in the fire departments and police departments in Hanson. They managed to underfund the schools and fund Hanson Police and Fire, which is essentially exactly what happened before. So it just looks like a roundabout way to do the same exact thing that they've been doing. So I think people need to be accountable for whoever said they couldn't afford it needs to explain why they said that and why they felt confident enough to come to the finance committee and fight Hanson citizens case and Hanson Police and Fire's case, while our citizens and police and fire did not get those same advantages. And, you know, that's a serious issue. And
Right.
you know, especially because it ends up doing having the same exact result as if we had given it through not doing the statutory, which makes that whole we didn't know thing and all the backdoor things look even more uncomfortable. I just don't believe it. Especially because we see him doing it again.
Yeah. So I go back to the whole, if we're going to move forward as a regional district, we got to have the confidence, and we got to have, trust in a reasonable assessment of each town's ability to pay prior to town meeting.
There's numbers that you can use for that. And I said it at the last meeting before. These aren't numbers that you just have to guess at. The school committee received the Mars reports of both towns that say the percentage of budget they should be using towards schools to achieve that average of education. They didn't use it. I don't even think they even looked at it. Then we also have something called a combined yield effort that really should, we talked about it before. I sent out the breakdown of money. There's numbers they should be using and we should be using and setting our budgets to that. Madden's recommendations work nicely with them for us. So I don't think it's like this mystery. We just really can't say we can't afford it. We should be calculating how much we can afford based on the Mars reports and based on the math that makes it so that we can service our citizens. Making up a number so to educate kids like, oh, I'm going to pull it out of a hat is just so irresponsible. Really is.
So let's see if we can follow up this discussion with the Board of Selectmen here in Whitman and find out, obviously we're going to be, like we talked about earlier, more involved with our own town accountant, and perhaps he can give us some insight into what happened at Hanson's town meeting without, taking him away from his day-to-day responsibilities and, get a little more information as we go forward. So I think they're all very good questions, very good points to bring up.
Yeah, if I may, that all this information is very discouraging about their town meeting, that special town meeting after everything we went through. And I am definitely curious what our elected officials, how they take this information, how they view it, and what they think about it after some of them were so steadfast in trying to do the right thing and help them out to bridge the gap. And
we should ask them.
I think we'll invite them to the next meeting. How's that sound?
I think I asked them,
Great.
guys. I think I asked them over and over again, and they never had an answer.
Unbelievable.
And the best answer we got was they're just not going to pay it. Finally, Justin said that.
Okay. All right. Like I said, we'll throw the invitation out for our next meeting. All right, and anybody else? And I do have the non-mandated busing still on the old business. Perhaps, and then just throwing it out there, I don't want to start a discussion at this hour, but maybe, every time we brought this issue up about trying to, lessen our expenses and, fall into a little bit more of a pattern of assessing costs to the people that are actually utilizing the services. The whole pay-as-you-go program, I think, has merit. And I think from what we've been getting back from both the Board of Selectmen here in Whitman and the school district is you're bringing it up too late in the year for us to do anything about it. Well, here we are. We're at the beginning of the budget cycle. Perhaps now we can have a honest discussion about doing something. I mean, and I'm a little concerned too, as we look back at last year and the district requesting a reimbursement from the transportation company, getting the reimbursement and then using the money for a curriculum item without calculating the non-mandated portion of it to return to the town. I think it was an afterthought, and I don't even know if it was going to be considered had we not mentioned it at our finance committee meeting. So these are the honest communications that we have to depend on if we're going to continue to communicate with the district.
Those
On the
numbers
right
aren't a
level.
60-40 split. Those numbers are not a 60-40 split. So that would mean an additional amount that Whitman would have paid over. Those
Right.
numbers are much higher for Whitman residents.
Right, yeah. So we did get reimbursed. There is money back in that line item from the rebate that we realized due to the, COVID-19 and the busing that was not utilized last year. So like I said, I'd like to keep it on the back burner. I'd like to see if maybe, Kathleen, as the liaison to the district, we could maybe work with somebody on the school committee to talk about how we move forward with a pay-as-you-go. I think it's one of those things where we can't keep saying why we shouldn't do it. We should try to find a way to make it work, even if it's on a limited basis at the beginning. So.
I agree, because it's a $410,000 item. That's not small pocket change. That's a significant amount of money.
Yep. And again, mindful of the fact that there are people that need that resource. We're certainly going to ensure that people who have a financial need are going to have their transportation needs met. But there realistically are people right now that are not using the bus. And you could realize at least a 15-20% savings right off the bat if someone did the math. All right, anything else on that? We do have one communication from the Board of Health. Perhaps our new liaison could reach out to Barbara White. Her communications dated September 15th. Public health nurse, dear committee members, this is to the Whitman Finance Committee. This letter is to inform you that we may require additional monies for the public health nurse for fiscal year 2021 due to increased hours necessary to coordinate COVID-19 issues and reporting, as well as the mandated duties for other communicable diseases. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Barbara J. White, Vice Chair. So no other specific information. It would be nice to, it's pretty vague, but
Yeah.
if they're going to be seeking more money, obviously we're going to.
Why wouldn't that come from the CARES Act?
That's what I was going to ask. Why wouldn't they do this from the kids?
Yeah,
That's right out of the gate. That'd be the
reimburse
question
it,
I would have. Like I
that
said,
that doesn't go to us.
John, that has to be reimbursed. So we would have to pay it first. It's a grant.
No, but the CARES Act allowed us to deficit spend. So
Okay.
we're able to deficit spend in a CARES Act line item, and then that gets reimbursed. So it doesn't have to go to any, that's how it's all happening. It's all happening as a CARES Act line item, and then they get reimbursed for it. So
yes, I agree.
We also have to know what we're spending it on, what she wants the money for.
Right. Yes.
So, Rick, if you want to forward me that email.
Sure. Yep,
That was me. Okay, Rick.
yep, will do, Chuck.
And
It
Yeah,
came as a
actually-
letter, actually.
oh, it
so-
did. Okay.
So I'll take a picture of it and email it to you.
Keep in mind, anything that's done in the CARES Act, we can't follow through. So, I mean, it could be that she wants to keep the nurse later on, but I think that should have to come up before the committee, and there'd have to be an explanation, since we've just doubled that department last year,
Right.
to why we would have to
Yeah,
then
right.
add another
Right.
person. And that would be the only reason I would think you wouldn't go through the CARES Act.
That's still fresh in my mind. Yes, very good. Good point.
Hmm.
All right, anything else on the communications? Okay, so I think we skipped over the scheduling thing for the budget managers. So I'm just going to be very brief. I had Frank print me out a new budget meeting calendar that just has every Tuesday from now till the 13th of July. So realistically, getting the feedback from Ken, we do have enough departments that have submitted their budgets to schedule the first of the budget meetings. Last year, we started the budget meetings on October 29th, and we concluded with the holidays. We concluded in the 21st of January with the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. So I would suspect that we are probably going to be on that same kind of timeline. If we start our budget meetings at the end of October, we could realistically finish the first couple of weeks of January. But again, it's important that we have the budget before we have the meeting. So let's see what we get back from budgets. Right now, we're October 6th. I don't really think there's a need to have a meeting on October 13th because the budgets aren't due to the 15th. Unless somebody, thinks that we need to have a meeting with the Board of Selectmen specifically. I don't think that probably warrants an entire meeting. I think we just put some time aside to get some questions answered. I'll be away on October 20th. So we're October 27th, if we put that for the first budget meeting, I could use those three departments. If the liaisons for the treasurer collector and the council on aging want to put an email together, just to, after we send out the budget, the meeting schedule, just to solid up with those two departments. Maybe that would be the first meeting for the end of October. Does anybody have any meeting dates that they need to black out? If there's enough people where we wouldn't get a quorum, now would be the time that if you want to take a few minutes to just look through your calendar. Like I said, I am going away the week of the 18th to the 22nd, so that's why. But there's no other Tuesday that I wouldn't be available right through the budget season, so. So what I'll do is I'll pencil in the departments that have submitted budgets for the first meeting, and I will send out this schedule so that we can start following up with the liaisons to the department. Sound good?
That's great.
Yep.
All right, does anybody have anything that we haven't brought up, would like to bring up? Go ahead, Chuck.
Just a follow-up to Josh's email. I don't know if everybody saw it. He had some examples of the visual budgets that I guess they're redoing ours. Anybody have any thoughts on it? I looked at a few of them. I mean, I thought they looked kind of nice, all of them.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the town of Arlington stuck out to me. They all were pretty similar.
I liked Arlington because it was cleaner. It was easy to read. I
Yeah.
did email Josh and Rick back on that at the end of September that I liked Arlington. I thought it was the best one. That had my
Okay.
vote as well. So
Excellent, yes. I'm sure Josh appreciated the feedback too from our committee, so. One of the other things too, just off the top of my mind, where I sent out an email about the search for the new town administrator. The company did reach out to me after I filled out a survey. I did a phone interview, a little over a half hour, just basically outlining what the challenges for the finance committee and what focus a new town administrator should take, as we're considering who to hire. So, collaboration and communication, I tried to highlight. as something that would be really great requisite proficiencies for someone coming in as our new town administrator. So I think the message was received. Go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, I just got a question. What about Lisa Green? Is she gonna be in the running or is she just gonna stay back as the assistant administrator?
Well, that was another one of my questions for the search person was, I thought it would be easier if the search committee knew the direction of the town. Were we going to maintain an assistant, or are we just going with a new town administrator with no assistant? Because I'm sure that would affect the person who was applying for the position. They would certainly want to know that, but the Board of Selectmen have not given the search committee that information. So I don't know if Lisa Green is definitely a candidate in the search. I do believe she's seeking the position, but she's going to be weighed in with the other applicants, and
Hey,
the
Rick,
Board of Selectmen will make this final selection. Go
Rick,
ahead.
do they have a search committee?
The Board of Selectmen is going to be the final, the company that they hired.
They're the search committee.
No, they hired a consulting firm to
Okay.
do the search, yeah. So they're taking applications and they're doing
Okay.
interviews and narrowing the search down for the
Okay.
Board of Selectmen to make the final decision.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay. All right, so I just wanted to share that, I did give some information about what would help our committee moving forward, so. All right.
Hey, Rick, real quick, do we know who they hired for a search committee?
Firm?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a firm. I'll email that to you.
They're
I
out of
forget the name.
they're out of Plymouth.
Paradigm?
Paradigm. That's
Paradigm.
That's right, yeah.
Yep. So the individual, I can forward her contact information if you would like to
Yeah.
communicate directly with her, if you had some feedback that you wanted to provide.
Sure, absolutely, Rick. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'll do that. Okay, if there is no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we'll go around to Rosemary,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Al,
Yes, sir.
John,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, thank you all for coming in and getting us set up for this budget season. I appreciate all you continue to do.
Have a great night.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Bye. Bye-bye.